Give him his skunk. Words famously uttered by the ODM chair John Mbadi on President William Ruto's cabinet nominees just 2 years ago. Now he is among those slated to join the very same cabinet. Despite repeated denials, Raila Odinga's ODM is now evidently a part of President William Ruto's, quote, broad-based government that has also seen the return of 10 of his former cabinet secretaries, including an apologetic Kipchumba Murkomen. Has there been betrayal in the city? Do these cabinet nominees capture the aspirations of those who risked life and limb to demand fidelity to the Constitution? Or is it a return to the old order? As you can see, myself, Olive Burrows, is standing in for Jeff Koinange, and on JKLive, we have the former head of public service and secretary to the cabinet, Francis Kimemia, who served under two presidents, being former Mwai Kibaki and Uhuru Kenyatta. And he takes us behind the curtain to shed light on the horse trading that precedes the naming of a cabinet. But first, as is the custom, here are the highlights.
I am acutely aware that the responsibility of managing the affairs of the country will require of us to work together.
Raila men in cabinet. President Ruto unveiled opposition nominees under a broad-based government arrangement.
I have now forwarded the name of John Mbadi Ngongo to the Ministry of National Treasury and Economic Planning.
Debt, fuel and hustler fund. ODM appointees land tough assignments, including Kenya Kwanza flagship programs. Casualties and survivors. Rebecca Miano moved again as Moses Kuria, Njuguna Ndongo and 10 others fall.
Tunataka mabadiliko yafanyike katika sheria kama vile kika, kwa sababu hatutaki censorship ya media kila wakati.
March against police brutality. Journalists stage countrywide demos as attacks on media mount. And tonight, I also have as our sign language interpreter with me in studio, Yula Nzale. President William Ruto this afternoon revealed what he meant by a, quote, broad-based government, incorporating 4 opposition leaders from the Orange Democratic Movement into his cabinet. The development flying in the face of spirited denials by ODM party leader Raila Odinga that he was not desperate to join government. The list also sees the number of returnees grow from 6 to 10, including an apologetic Kipchumba Murkomen, former Attorney General Justin Muturi, and a reassigned Rebecca Miano. Let's take a look at the full list. And we begin with John Mbadi, who has been nominated for the National Treasury and Economic Planning Cabinet Secretary. Is not the only one from ODM to join those in this list. We have James Opio Wandai, Ministry of Energy and Petroleum Cabinet nominee, Cabinet Secretary nominee. We also have the deputy party leaders on this list, the deputy party leaders of ODM. We have Hassan Ali Joho, who has been nominated to the Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs. We also have Wycliffe Oparanya, or I should say Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya, who has been nominated to the Ministry of Cooperatives and MSME Development. As we heard in our highlights there, those are the flagship ministries for Kenya Kwanza. Kipchumba Murkomen, I had told you earlier, tweeted saying he apologizes to Kenyans if his lifestyle has offended them, and he has made a return as a nominee to the Cabinet Ministry of, take note, Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports. He is not the only one to make a return on this list. We also have the former Attorney General Justin Bedan Muturi, who now has been nominated to the Ministry of Public Service and Human Capital Development. Interestingly, the next person on this list had been nominated as his possible successor, but now she's been nominated to the Ministry of Tourism and Wildlife, the woman who would have become the first female Attorney General of Kenya. Her name, Rebecca Miano. Also on this list, we have Alfred Ng'ang'a Mutua making a return, Ministry of Labour and Social Protection. You will recall that previously he served in the Ministry of Tourism. And also on this list, making a return, Salim Mvurya Mgala, Ministry of Investments, Trade and Industry, has now been replaced by Ali Hassan Joho, who has been nominated to the post he previously held. And we also have a face that may or may not be familiar to you, Stella Sway Langat, and she has been nominated, I beg your pardon, Ministry of Gender, Culture, the Arts and Heritage, making the new faces, aside from the 4 from ODM, making the new faces 6. Now, in a twist of Kenya's political ironies, appointees from the opposition ODM party will now be in charge of some of the flagship programs of the Kenya Kwanzaa administration, if cleared by Parliament. For the deal-breaking national debt to the cost of fuel and even the Hustler Fund, ODM may just have landed the heart of the challenges President William Ruto has been grappling with for the last 20 months. And as Melita Oletenges reports, the entire top leadership of ODM has been drafted into cabinet, with its nominees speaking the Treasury, Energy, Cooperatives and Mining dockets.
Fund ya Hustler Fund bilioni 50 ingewekwa mahali ambayo itasaidia kufufua uchumi hii. You cannot run an economy with political tokenism. Hiyo haitasaidia wananchi. Iweze kufufua uchumi hii. Na kule kwangu wamesema hiyo pesa ya Hustler wakipata watalipa. Hapa mtafanya nini?
Wycliffe Ambetsa Oparanya's first task at the Ministry of Cooperatives may well be a simple one, swallowing his own words. Just under 2 years ago, Oparanya was one of the sharpest critics of the Hustler Fund, a flagship election program of President Ruto's Kenya Kwanzaa administration. In a surprise turn of fate, the Hustler Fund will now be in Oparanya's hands if cleared by Parliament for role of Cabinet Secretary. Oparanya is currently the ODM Deputy Party Leader.
That for you to grow this economy, for you to narrow the budget deficit, you need to tax Kenyans more. That is, nothing can be further from the truth.
ODM Chairperson John Mbadi has been nominated to take over from Professor Njuguna Ndung'u at the Ministry of Treasury and Economic Planning. It is expected that the buck will now stop with him on critical matters such as the country's debt, including the escalating borrowing and the hue and cry by Kenyans on the high cost of living. Mbadi has been critical on how the government has been running the show.
I've never been to State House. I don't intend to. I have never had a one-on-one meeting with him, so the only forum I can use is this one, to tell him what I think he needs to do.
Mbadi will be expected to undo what he has termed a mess, the National Treasury being a critical docket in steering the country from dire straits. On the other hand, Minority Leader James Opiyo Wandayi, proposed to head the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, will now be the man at the center of tough and emotive decisions, including the cost of fuel and electricity. Wandayi will be required to oversee the last-mile connectivity project, which has suffered setbacks due to budget cuts.
It is this decision or attempt by the Kenya Kwanzaa government to increase VAT on fuel, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I can tell you, if by any chance, and God forbid, that this finance bill is passed and it becomes an act of parliament, that will mark the beginning of the fall of this regime.
A change of heart by the minority leader is inevitable to align with policies that he has watered down on the floor of the House. Hassan Ali Joho proposed to head the Ministry of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs if given the green light to head the docket, comes to office at a time when Kenya has discovered deposits of coltan across 6 counties, but more notably actualized the promise of providing jobs through the blue economy by President William Ruto.
Mimi Hassan Joho nikitaka kuongea, mimi I don't even dream of engaging with them. Ati huyu akitaka aje aongee sio na mimi niongee na Ruto nini? Mimi nikamtafute atanipa nini? Wilbaro. Nilipeleka Wilbaro mimi la kimtaani la kucheza nalo zamani.
Joho's salvo directed at the president over the port debate was a fiery moment between him and his future boss. Now a nominee for CS Mining and Blue Economy, Ali Hassan Joho, might have to start by gulping down some of those words. If they secure their place at the helm of the different dockets after facing the vetting panel, the ODM nominees must fully endorse President William Ruto's agenda and align with the plan, from being the critics without to now being the supremos within and on the public radar. Melita Oletenges, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Alphabetic letter M seems to be the lucky letter as Murkomen, Mvurya, Muturi, Mutua and Miano made their return to the cabinet. But as Stephen Leto reports, M seems to stand for many factors in President Ruto's consideration in picking the 5 nominees.
Onesmus Kipchumba Murkomen was the undisputed poster boy of the grievances of the thousands of protesters angered for what they termed as public display of opulence. From watches to shoes and belts, Murkomen is a self-confessed consumer of expensive taste, with a belt that will cost the equivalent of a salary and a watch valued at what will pass for someone's retirement benefits.
The most expensive watch you have? That which I bought with my own money. Yes. Well, it was almost like, I think if I remember well, because it's time now, it's about 900,000 or something.
Murkomen was the perfect bullseye of the Gen Z outrage. The former Transport Cabinet Secretary was also known for his outspoken ways. He was loud and rarely resisted the opportunity to argue, and that outraged protesters. When the cabinet was dissolved, some celebrated the specific presumptive fall of Kipchumba Murkomen, but the celebrations might well have been premature after he made onto the cabinet list. Ruto reinstated his man, a close ally, and an apologetic sidekick. Ironically, Murkomen, whose name enraged the youth, is headed to the youth ministry if cleared by parliament.
Ona watu, lakini Murkomen anasema rudi field ya law. Enda unda law farm yako ka huko baada tukutaki hata MCA huko Elgeyo Marakwet utapata.
Alfred Mutua passed for a lucky return. When he went missing in the first list, all signs pointed at trouble for Mutua, whose docket was seen as a potential giveaway under the Ruto undefined broad-based political arrangement.
We shall not participate in or support the proposed Kenya Kwanza-led broad-based government of national unity, because this is a betrayal of the Kenyan people.
Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka's hardline stance on joining government could well have saved Alfred Mutua. The former CS for tourism could well get his third bite of the cabinet cherry as he was named nominee for CS Labour. Previously, Mutua held the foreign affairs docket before being unceremoniously switched to the tourism docket under unclear circumstances. Then comes Justin Bidan Muturi, the holder of the proverbial 9 lives of a cut award. Muturi is literally back from the ashes, having held the Attorney General's office, which he sunk with the dissolution of cabinet in a move that defied constitutional provisions on the removal of the Attorney General. If cleared by Parliament, Muturi returns to cabinet to take charge of the public service docket previously held by outspoken Moses Kuria. Muturi was initially to be succeeded by Rebecca Miano as Attorney General, but the nomination of the former CS for Trade has been something of a bouncing ball as Ruto, for the second time in 6 days, nominated Miano to different docket. The soft-spoken Miano has now been nominated for CS Tourism in nominations that went quiet on AG docket. For Salim Mvurya, unquestionable loyalty seems to pay dividends as the former Blue Economy and Mining CS makes a return to the cabinet for nominee on trade and investment. He is Ruto's dedicated man, having acquitted himself by standing with Ruto through the political equivalent of thick and thin. Mvurya is regarded as Hassan Joho's coastal political counterweight and is well regarded within the Kenya Kwanza circles for delivering the quota of support that mattered. Stephen Leto, Citizen TV.
President William Ruto has today all but sealed the fate of 12 cabinet secretaries from his first cabinet with the nomination of new cabinet secretaries. The 12 had been hopeful of making a return to cabinet but are now assured that their time in cabinet is up. Brenda Wanga reports on the exit of nearly half of Ruto's first cabinet.
So what was certainly a nerve-wracking 2 weeks, 12 members of cabinet now know where they stand, and it is out of the cabinet. When President William Ruto announced the second half of his cabinet nominees, it became clear that the time was up for the 12 as their places were taken by either their former colleagues or members of the opposition now co-opted into government.
The Honorable James Opio Wandai, Ministry of Energy.
Cabinet reconstitution was one of the demands that the Gen Z protesters had of the president.
I've been calling them the generation of Twitter, Uber and fish fingers. That's what I've been calling them, you know.
The cabinet reconstitution was one of the demands that the Gen Z protesters had of the president. One of the most vocal and visible CSs, the outgoing public service docket holder Moses Kuria, became a victim of the Gen Z protests. Former cooperative CS Simon Chelugui's lucky streak in cabinet that saw him serve for 2 consecutive terms under the Uhuru Kenyatta government and transition to Ruto's administration has now ended with Wycliffe Oparanya set to replace him. The game is over too for Ababu Namwamba, whose return to the sports docket came nearly 10 years from when he served, albeit shortly, in the late former President Mwai Kibaki's government. His spot taken by the former CS for Transport Kipchumba Murkomen.
My parents were poor. They used to struggle to provide for me.
First timer in cabinet Aisha Jumwa, who had a rather quiet run in the Ministry of Gender, Culture, Arts and Heritage, has also been shown the door with the nomination of her possible successor, Stella Langat. The man who's been in charge of driving the ICT agenda in the Kenya Kwanza government will not be making a comeback to cabinet after the slot was filled last week by a new nominee. He may have survived the impeachment attempt in Parliament, but there wasn't much that he could have done to escape the axe when Ruto reconstituted his cabinet. The former Meru senator joins immediate former National Treasury CS, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u, who oversaw the presentation of Kenya Kwanza's 2 first budgets out in the political cold. The proposals contained in the budget to raise revenues for this financial year triggered the protests that have eventually cost him and some of his cabinet colleagues their slots in government.
Allow a discussion and conversation to take place.
Susan Nahomiche's troubled run at the helm of the health docket has also been brought to an end today with her omission from the lineup presented by the president today. Penina Malonza, formerly of tourism, and Zakaria Njeru, who served in 2 dockets, have been removed from the cabinet as quietly as their tenure in their respective dockets was. With just 2 more posts to fill in cabinet, that of the CS of EAC and SL and the Attorney General, these CSs know only too well that their chances of making a comeback are well and truly narrow to non-existent. With the exception of Simon Chelugui, 11 of the cabinet secretaries who made up the Kenya Kwanza's first government will have served for a period of 20 months before their exit. And as they leave government, Kenyans will be pondering over the impact their time in cabinet and in government was. Brenda Wanga, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
So, Raila Odinga is officially back in government after a 3-year break. But the opposition leader is not new to handshakes, this being his 4th with a sitting president. Seth Olale takes us down memory lane from Raila's first handshake with the late retired president, Daniel Arap Moi, in 2001.
It started on the steps of KICC, where Raila Odinga flanked President William Ruto as he announced plans to form a broad-based cabinet.
And we have agreed that a membership of 150 representatives of various stakeholders.
A dialogue is the way forward out of the crisis that we're having today in our country.
This is the fourth time Raila has joined government in ways other than the ballot. From the opposition benches, Raila has penetrated the center of government through the handshake. It all started from photos which emerged from Uganda, which looked like a political formation, which was denied at the time. But in time, it came apparent that this was not a drill. Raila and Ruto were up to something.
As the term of Musa Faki, our current chair, comes to an end, it is going to be the turn for East Africa to provide the chair of the Africa Union.
The offer to support Raila, AU Commission chairman, defined a shift in the political relation between two of the country's foremost opponents.
Yes.
Through meetings with other heads of states, Ruto demonstrated his commitment to support Raila's bid, and in return, Raila played ball at home. Out went the protests against cost of living, fuel prices and other related grievances, and in came a cooperative opposition, quietly pledging not to rock the Ruto boat. This cooperation seemingly culminated in the appointment of Raila's close allies into Ruto's cabinet.
I have sufficient knowledge and experience to be able to move the AU forward. AU is an institution that was founded by the founding fathers of our nation.
Just 5 years ago, a similar script appeared to be at play, with Raila Odinga shaking hands with the then President Uhuru Kenyatta on the steps of Harambee House in what marked the beginning of what others called a shared term. Though Raila did not secure cabinet slots in Uhuru's cabinet, some diplomatic appointment went his way. So did key parliamentary positions as Kenyatta embarked on a purge of Ruto allies, replacing them with Raila's lieutenants.
And we say that the divide ends here, beginning the process of building the bridge that binds Kenya together.
This marks a new beginning for our country, a beginning in which we hope that we shall march together as Kenyans.
The Uhuru and Raila handshake was considered a carbon copy of the Kibaki and Odinga handshake of 28 February 2008. A handshake that culminated in, among other things, the formation of the Grand Coalition government, splitting power between President Kibaki and Mr. Odinga. The forced cohabitation did not, however, erase the fact that Kibaki and Odinga previously entered into another coalition agreement as they led their respective alliances in the formation of National Rainbow Coalition that won the 2002 presidential election. Raila's power-sharing experiments dates back to the final years of late-retired Mzee Daniel Moi's era, when he, through an arrangement called cooperation, secured the influential energy docket, an appointment that startled the opposition. Further shocks were to follow as Odinga folded his National Development Party to join KANU, where he became the Secretary General. At the time, the KANU Director of Elections was William Ruto.
Cooperation is that idea whose time has come, and ideas do move fast as their time comes. Hence this historic pact and consummation of merger today of our two parties.
And today, the two are back together. The latest cabinet changes mark an unlikely but now complete return of all allies, William Ruto and Raila Odinga, The two allies were also members of the ODM Pentagon during the 2007 election. But in the irony of politics, the two are now back together. Seth Olale, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
President William Ruto spent a better part of his speech defending his move to have opposition members appointed into his cabinet, saying it was time the country united to move forward after weeks of protests. The president named 4 ODM members into his cabinet, assigning the opposition the powerful and lucrative docket of National Treasury. As Citizen TV's Emmanuel Tona reports, the president also reiterated that he had heard the protesters and outlined measures aimed at addressing the issues they raised during the month-long protests.
In his additional lineup for cabinet secretary positions, President William Ruto was keen on actualizing the broad-based government that he, for the first time, mentioned at the steps of KICC during the signing of the IEBC Bill 2024. ODM Chairman John Mbadi was nominated to the powerful National Treasury docket, while ODM Deputy Party leaders Ali Hassan Joho and Wycliffe Oparanya and the leader of the minority in the National Assembly, Opiyo Wandayi, also became part of the first batch of beneficiaries of the government of national unity.
The opportunity we have to work together across political lines, across different divisions, is much more greater than the challenge and the crisis we have in our hands.
The president making a case for his decision, saying he consulted widely and that the step is in the right direction.
I am acutely aware that the responsibility of managing the affairs of the country vested in the cabinet, in the expanded cabinet, will require of us to work together.
And with the enraged populace which led the demonstrations still infuriated by the police killings, the head of state called on the security agencies to release protesters in police custodies and pledged that the police who killed innocent protesters will be brought to book.
All breaches and violations by police officers must be handled expeditiously through due process with a view to giving Kenyans a police service that upholds the highest standards of integrity.
The president outlining several ways in which underlying issues raised by the Gen Z protesters will be addressed, and particularly the cancer of corruption.
I will be proposing amendments to the Evidence Act and the Criminal Procedure Code, among other necessary legislative amendments to all statutes relating to corruption, to expedite investigations and prosecution of corruption and economic crimes cases and provide for their conclusion within 6 months.
President Ruto will now be concluding the naming of the members of his cabinet in coming days, with the Attorney General docket still vacant and possibly another CS post. The move by President William Ruto to include members of the opposition in his cabinet is expected to elicit more reactions online and offline, as the members who have been appointed are expected to be vetted by the Committee on Appointments of the National Assembly. But the president maintains this is the move that will be turbocharging his administration and get him out of the current situation that has been necessitated by the demonstrations that has been witnessed in the country for the past 1 month. Emmanuel Tona, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
Various leaders have expressed differing opinions on the appointment of President William Ruto's cabinet ministers this Wednesday. MPs aligned with the ODM party within the larger Azimio coalition have lauded the appointments, emphasizing that the selected cabinet ministers are not only from ODM but are hardworking Kenyans who will greatly assist the president in governing the nation, urging Kenyans to prioritize national interests over party politics. Conversely, leaders from the Wiper party, led by Machakos Governor Wavinya Ndeti, have criticized the appointments, asserting that Wiper will now assume the role of opposition in national politics.
Nataka kutoa hii kasumba ya kuwa watu wa ODM wameingizwa kwa serikali, kwa sababu kila wakati tukiangalia watu kwa misingi ya siasa tunapoteza mwelekeo. Wale ambao wamepata nafasi ni Wakenya kama Wakenya wengine. na amewapata Wakenya kutoka pande nyingine ya nchi. So sisi ni kumshukuru rais kwa kusikiza maoni ya Wakenya. But the naysayers who are feeling that maybe some people have betrayed them, I do not think that the issues that were being pursued by all of us as leaders and as a nation, they do not stop here.
Sisi kama chama ya Wiper kwa serikali lazima kuwa opposition na serikali. Na mimi nimwambia Mheshimiwa Raila, sisi hatuna shida. Umeamua, sisi tunakuheshimu, na kwa sababu ile heshima sisi tumekuheshimu, tumesema hakuna shida, wewe endelea, sisi watu wa Machakos hatuna shida. Kalonzo amekusupport hiyo miaka yote. It is well with us.
Let's take a look at the reactions from those who have been nominated to join President William Ruto's cabinet. We begin with Ali Hassan Joho, who posted on X, "It is with great humility and profound appreciation that I accept my nomination by President William Ruto for the position of Cabinet Secretary of Mining, Blue Economy and Maritime Affairs. I extend my sincere gratitude to Almighty Allah for this opportunity to once again serve the great people of Kenya in a different capacity." He continued to write, "Upon confirmation, I look forward to working closely with all relevant stakeholders to ensure the blue economy, mining and maritime sectors take a leading role in the socio-economic transformation of our nation." Another of Raila's men also posted this: "Thank you, President William Ruto, for nominating me to the position of CS Energy and Petroleum. It will be a great honor and privilege to serve my country in this new capacity if I secure the approval of the National Assembly. My gratitude to Baba at Raila Odinga for his enduring mentorship and tutelage." And now we have Kipchumba Murkomen, honored and grateful to have been nominated by His Excellency the President, William Ruto, as the Cabinet Secretary for the Ministry of Youth Affairs, Creative Economy and Sports. "Thank you, Mr. President, for this incredible opportunity, to serve our great nation, Kenya." And it continues to read, "The last 2 weeks have been moments of deep reflection. I would like to unreservedly apologize to every Kenyan who I may have offended through my words, my deeds, and my conduct, including my lifestyle in the last 2 years of my public service. Subject to my approval by Parliament, I pledge to serve the people of Kenya diligently with great humility and unwavering accountability." We take a break on JKLive. But when we come back, we hear from Kenyans on their views on these cabinet nominees. Remember, at Citizen TV Kenya, at O'Barrows, hashtag JKLive. Share your thoughts. See you on the other side of this break. Thank you for staying with us on JKLive. And Kenyans have expressed mixed views regarding the new cabinet appointments announced by President William Ruto today. While some criticize the president for retaining some former cabinet secretaries, others are celebrating the appointment of, quote, new faces to the cabinet. Here are some of the diverse reactions from across the country.
But as for now, we are going to cool down. Even for tomorrow, we are not going to go for the protest. We are cooling down because we are giving you time to work. If you work, tukiona una flow vizuri, we are good. But if you don't work, si kama jenzi bado tuko na nyinyi.
Nashukuru Raila. Kitu Raila amefanya ni kitu cha muhimu sana, kukubali kukua kwenye kikao ama kukubali kwenye kikao.
So kesho sisi hatutarudi kwa barabara. Hatutarudi kwa barabara.
Mbadi is a choice that will not disappoint him. Having performed here for 17 years in this constituency, Mbadi is a proven sterling.
John Mbadi is a person who's competent. He's accountant in profession and he holds a diploma in a degree in accountancy in University of Nairobi. Such people can run the government like that.
Yani president wetu umechukua sura ya Kenya ambaye ni sura ambaye kila mtu amefurahia.
One, I'm going to congratulate my friend Murkomen. Hapo umewekwa penye tulikuwa tunataka. Deal na vijana, vile sisi vijana tulikuwa tumeona uko na hiyo nini kidogo. Tunataka tuseme ukwe na mali yako lakini kimoyomoyo.
Baada ya miaka 10 ya Rais Ruto, Joho ndo atakuwa rais wetu wa hii Kenya. Na natoa kongole kwa Rais Ruto kwa kutuchagulia kiongozi wetu ambao ni sultani, na sisi kama wakazi wa Pwani tunamwamini sultani kwa kazi hiyo anayoweza na yataendesha vizuri. Mheshimiwa Rais, sisi kama wakazi wa Pwani sahihi tuko tayari na wewe, hatuna shida na wewe na tuko na imani na wewe kwa sababu tunaamini kabisa tumejenga matumaini mapya yale tuliyokuwa nayo wakati ule wa Karisa Maita.
Kwa hiyo Ruto, sisi tuko pamoja na wewe kama wa Pwani, muache Joho afanye kazi, abadilishe Pwani.
Mombasa tutaki tena maandamano. Hapa ni Joho, tutafute madini. I love you Joho.
Kitu kimoja president umesahau. Hatujaona mama mboga. Sijui mama mboga nani atatutetea.
Je, maoni yako ni yepi? At Citizen TV Kenya, at @Burrows, #JKLive, have your say. Journalists, and I can see Babu somewhere here behind me, journalists from across the country held peaceful protests on Wednesday, decrying the government's attempts at stifling press freedom. In Nairobi County, aggrieved journalists presented a petition to the police headquarters following increased cases of harassment and even injury of colleagues while on duty. This comes even as more journalists in different counties held similar protests, calling for respect of the profession of journalism. With that report is Laura Otieno.
Wednesday morning and the streets of Nairobi were abuzz with activity as journalists protested. A journey that started at Nation Center. So journalists marched through the city before making a stop at the Kenya Police Administration headquarters on Jogoo House, presenting their petition to the National Police spokesperson Resila Onyango. Today's protest was sparked by, among other things, veiled threats against media houses, harassment of journalists, as well as attempts to undermine Section 34 of the Constitution of Kenya, which touches on freedom of the media.
Nataka mabadiliko katika Ministry of ICT. Kuna sheria nyingi sana zinakandamiza wanahabari, lakini Ministry of ICT ni kama hayoni. Tunataka mabadiliko yafanyike katika sheria kama vile kika, kwa sababu hatutaki censorship ya media kila wakati.
For us to deal with poor policy and bad policy in the Ministry of ICT, for us to have justice, for us to have media freedom, for us to stop blackmail of media, Kisiangani must go.
Similarly, journalists from the counties of Kirinyaga, Kisii, Bomet and Makueni also took to the streets to decry the shrinking media space and freedom.
Kuna makundi fulani ambayo huwa yakiona tukitekeleza kazi yetu kwamba wangependa kutuumiza. Hatutaki na tunasema kwamba sisi ni watumwa na watumwa lazima waheshimiwe.
Sisi ni dada zenu na mnafanya mtupende na mheshimu ile kazi yenye tunafanya. We stand to say no to disrespect to Kenyan media female journalists. And me here, I propose that we follow the constitution to the letter.
Other counties where protests took place include Nyeri, Kakamega and Busia. Laura Otieno, Citizen TV.
President William Ruto has made changes in the military. In the latest changes, 23 senior officers from Kenya Army, Kenya Air Force and Kenya Navy were appointed and promoted. The announcement followed a meeting of the Defence Council chaired by Prime Cabinet Secretary and Acting Defence Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi at the Ministry of Defence headquarters.
In a notice released by the Ministry of Defence hours after Prime Cabinet Secretary and Acting Defence Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi chaired the Defence Council meeting, which oversees the promotion, appointment and deployment of general officers. senior officers and officers in 3 services of the Kenya Defence Forces, President William Ruto has upheld the decision of the council to make new appointments, postings and promotions of 23 service members. In the new changes, Major General Stephen Mutuku has been appointed the Deputy Commandant, National Defence College. 17 canons from Kenya Army, Kenya Air Force and Kenya Navy have been promoted to the position of brigadier and appointed to serve in different positions within 3 services. Among those who have been promoted from the Kenya Army are Canon Edward Namao, who is now the Chief of Compensation and Welfare, DHQ. Canon Collins Otieno has been appointed Chief of Personnel at Kenya Army Headquarters. Canon Paul Koech has been appointed Chief of Training, while Canon Clement Nakundi will take charge as Deputy Managing Director, Kenya Meat Commission. From Kenya Air Force, Canon Bernard Olwach has been promoted to Brigadier and appointed Base Commander, Moi Air Base. Others are Canon Ndegwa Nawira, who is now the Head of Training Support and Research at National Defence College. Canon Nehemiah Kemei has been appointed CEO, Defence SACCO. From the Kenya Navy, Canon Lazarus Wafula has been appointed Base Commander, Kenya Navy Base Manda. Canon Abraham Biwot has been appointed Base Commander, Kenya Navy Base Mtongwe. Canon Mohammed Shemote takes over as the Base Commander, Kenya Navy Fleet. 2 brigadiers from Kenya Navy have also been appointed in the latest appointments. Brigadier John Kiswa has been appointed Deputy Commander, Kenya Navy, and Brigadier Peter Chelimo, who has been appointed Director for Security and Strategic Studies, National Defence University, Kenya. 3 lieutenant canons, 1 from Kenya Navy, 1 from Kenya Air Force, and 1 from Kenya Army have been promoted to canons and appointed to serve in different capacities. The changes in the military came on the day when President Ruto witnessed the swearing-in of the new Commissioner General of Prisons, Patrick Mwiti, at State House, Nairobi. The head of state has promised salary increment for police officers this month.
The prison service is looking forward to your leadership as you lead the prisons team in making sure that our correctional services are managed appropriately in the best interest of the country, and the reform process that is going on at the prisons will be undertaken under your watch and stewardship.
As part of the changes in the security sector, President Ruto is expected to announce the 2 Deputy Inspector Generals of Police after the National Police Service Commission completed interviews on Monday.
The impact of the April-May floods on the education sector continues to be felt, with over 15,000 learners from 62 schools affected by the floods, failing to report to school for the second term of learning. A survey by the Kenya Human Rights Commission and Elimu Yetu Coalition also shows that critical education infrastructure was destroyed by the floods, further affecting learning in schools that were damaged.
We also had, I think in total, from the schools that we sampled, I need just to give it the figure, that more than 15,000 students or learners never reported back. This one we have categorized and indicated that for the learners with special needs, 11% of that were learners with special needs. 9% of the category that did not report back were girls. And so these are numbers which still we do not know where they are. And we were asking also if there were any efforts being made by the local leadership to mop them and whip them back to school. There was no significant effort on that. The mechanism that also would help schools or learning centers really to overcome such attacks.
Veteran journalist Dorothy Kweyu, the mother of Stephen Munyaho, who has been tirelessly campaigning to save her son from execution in Saudi Arabia, continues to appeal to Kenyans for help in raising over 100 million shillings. Stephen Munyaho is scheduled to be executed on the 26th of November for the murder of a Yemeni man in 2011. Through a public appeal, the family has raised 11 million shillings so far out of the required 150 million for Munyaho's blood money known as Dia under Islamic law, which is necessary to secure a pardon from the victim's family. Munyaho, affectionately known as Steve-O, moved to Saudi Arabia in his early 20s and has been held at the Shimesha prison in Mecca for the last 13 years.
Our target was to raise the 150 million shillings. So far, we have put together about 11 million, which is less than 10% of the required sum. So our purpose here today is to renew our fundraising initiative by appealing to Kenyans and all people of goodwill to please donate generously to this cause. By our calculation, if just 100,000 Kenyans or people send in only 1,000 shillings each, we can actually raise 100 million, which will get us closer to the target.
I'm in touch with Steve-O as late as last evening when he called. Remember, he can call, but I cannot call him. He was in good health, and I told him that we would be having this press conference, and he is praying that Kenyans might come out for him.
Abdi Dida, a businessman dealing in cosmetics and beauty products in Kiritiri, Embu County, is the Shabiki midweek jackpot winner, taking home 4.4 million shillings after correctly predicting all 13 matches listed for play last week. He was awarded in Embu town on Wednesday.
After nearly a year of predictions on the leading gaming platform Shabiki.com, 4.4 million Kenya shillings midweek jackpot prize money has been won by Abdi Dida from Kiritiri, Embu County. The new millionaire, accompanied by his wife Mumina Bolicha, family and friends, could not contain his joy as he received the 4.4 million shillings check.
Wakati wa kwanza nimeona aliniambia amepata yote, nimeona amepata 13 over 13.
Shabiki wenyewe akanipigia customer care yao. Akafurahi, akaniambia mimi ni milionia, na mimi hata sijaamini. Baadaye imeona pesa imereflect, nimeamini.
Haki tumefurahia, hatujawahi ona pesa kama hii, lakini leo tuko na furaha sana.
The check presentation ceremony brought business to a standstill in Embu town, with everyone eager to catch a glimpse of the event. Dida and his wife shared their plans to invest their windfall thoughtfully. Shabiki.com has awarded 6.4 million shillings in bonuses through the Shabiki midweek jackpot over the past 7 months, totaling to 10.8 million shillings after today's award.
We are back at 1 million, currently at 1.1 million. Go to Shabiki.com, play the midweek jackpot, you could be the next millionaire.
Tumepanga kuinua biashara na tunaenda kusaidia na wazazi wetu wote, hata wao wafaidike, waone faida ya mashabiki, na tunaendelea kucheza zaidi.
The new midweek jackpot is running, with the prize money for the Shabiki super jackpot having ballooned to 10.1 million shillings. Steve Shitera, Citizen TV, Embu.
We take a break. Kenya's securities market displayed varied performance in the second quarter of the year on account of a stabilizing shilling, a successful Eurobond issuance, and enhanced foreign investor confidence. The Capital Markets Authority report for the second quarter of the year indicates that the equity market experienced higher turnover but a drop in key indices, while the bond market saw reduced turnover despite annual growth. Here is Jasmine Wambui with the details.
Capital Market Soundness report for the second quarter of the year indicates that the securities market has seen an uptick in volatility to 0.65%. Market liquidity improved marginally to 1.65% from 1.14% in quarter one. Foreign investor participation declined from 60.31% in quarter one of the year to 57.29% in the second quarter. The CMA report further indicates that equity turnover increased by 48.91% to 28.39 billion from 19.07 billion in quarter one. However, the NSE 20 share index and NSE all share index declined by 5.47% and 3.18% respectively, indicating overall slower market growth. The report indicates that top risks for the country include uncertainty over resolution of Gen Z-led issues and protests, slower than expected inflation reduction, rising geopolitical tensions, and climate change. However, the government's plan to establish a new bond platform and the reactivation of the Emakiba program is expected to attract retail investors. Similarly, FTSE Russell's decision to lift restrictions on NSE component firms is expected to pave way for improved market liquidity and investor participation. Jasmine Wambui, Citizen TV.
The push for the restructuring of the global multilateral financial architecture is set to take center stage at the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development that will take place in Spain later this year. The African group is already making preparations for this in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The preparatory meeting brings together member states, civil society and other stakeholders in the development finance landscape to explore ways of supporting development funding. According to the Africa Group, a member of the lobby organizations spearheading the push, this is the first step ahead of the Financing for Development Conference 2025. Jimmy Mbogo now takes a look at some of the elements that the lobby groups will be pushing for.
As African countries continue to struggle with debt burden, the Civil Society Financing for Development Mechanism, an umbrella body for civil societies, is set to present its recommendation for the restructuring of the global financial architecture in a meeting set to take place in Spain in June next year. According to Jason Rosario, the Executive Director of Africa Forum and Network on Debt Development, AFRODAD, the Global South continues to face debt distress owing to unfavorable terms that have led to wider social and fiscal issues. This causing the countries to squeeze their citizenry for more taxes to meet their debt obligation.
The system is no longer about willing buyer, willing seller, because there are serious social consequences when we reduce the conversation to it being an issue of a willing buyer, willing seller situation. Some of the conditions that the IMF imposes on countries, particularly in Africa, are having severe social consequences. You can see, look at the different circumstances that developing countries are finding themselves in today. You've got 4 countries in Africa that have defaulted. There are probably very many more that are likely to default. Look at the situation we're seeing with public protests across the world in Argentina, in Sri Lanka, in Bangladesh, in Kenya, in Uganda.
Among the changes the lobby groups will be pushing for in the reforms include a fairer and equal voice for developing countries on the international and global stage, better transparent accountability from all actors in development finance, reduced reliance on debt and market-led solution, as well as alignment of contemporary issues around climate emergency.
Right now, there's a lot of emphasis that's being placed on borrowing countries or borrowers to be very transparent and accountable. But there's very little transparency and accountability by lenders. When you look at how institutions like the IMF continue to lend to countries that are having very high debt burdens, when you look at sovereign bonds or Euro bond holders who continue to hold government paper, yet they know very well that these countries are going to struggle to pay off those bonds or pay off the returns.
The African Group has also called for the operationalization of the Global Financial Commitment and support for comprehensive debt relief initiative, with the continent's external debt now surpassing $655 billion amid escalating inflation. Jimmy Mbogo, Citizen TV, Nairobi.
The Law Society of Kenya has been enjoined in the ongoing case challenging the enforcement of the Seed and Plant Varieties Act. The inclusion of LSK follows a ruling by the High Court Justice Francis Raiola. The contentious act imposes criminal penalties on the sharing, sale and exchange of unregistered seeds. Proponents of indigenous farming and concerned farmers have staunchly opposed the act, fearing it could lead to the erosion and loss of indigenous seed varieties traditionally propagated through borrowing and replanting. The case is set to be mentioned on October 23rd, 2024.
Which is LSK will have 21 days to file its written submissions. The second interested party, which is the Biodiversity Association of Kenya, is also granted 21 days to file the submissions. The 21 days will run from after the supplementary affidavit has been filed. And then we mentioned the matter on 23rd of October to confirm compliance and to take a need to highlight the submissions.
The Bible says that God has given us seed for food, and God provides a seed to the sower and food to people. And therefore, if our seed is going to be controlled by some other person apart from God, we are concerned, and that's why we have come to back up the petitioners in this matter.
But what we are asking the government is to listen to the cry of farmers, because why they are so much interested in the indigenous seeds is because the certified seeds are expensive because of VAT, and we've been asking the government to allow us to remove VAT on certified seeds to allow affordability by farmers.
The government is set to roll out climate-smart technologies in order to cover the 28% water access deficit at the national level. Speaking at the launch of the village drill hybrid machine in Kisumu, Water Sector Trust Fund representative Nicodemus Omwanza indicated that the move was informed by the need to implement water access and connectivity to use it as an economic catalyst among rural communities. The Kisumu County government reiterated its commitment to also enhance the sanitization network by enlisting sanitation network, by enlisting a new company to roll out the sanitation network in Muhoroni, Seme and Nyakach sub-counties. The village drill technology has so far been applied in 40 countries and uses electricity for drilling as opposed to fuel-powered generators.
A big rig drilling truck might use 600 liters of diesel fuel to drill one borehole. But with the electric village drill, you can plug it into the wall and you use no petrol to drill a borehole. That's a tremendous savings on fuel cost and a tremendous benefit to the environment to combat climate change.
With this kind of technology that we are seeing here, having more boreholes to be drilled in most of these areas that we also target, we look forward to more development to cover the deficits in terms of coverage, which is 28% from the WASREP report.
So our primary focus is to ensure that there is sufficient resources that can be there and that can be availed for water in all people in the country.
The country's first ever Feeds Expo was held in Nairobi in a forum that sought to discuss trends and challenges facing feed production. The Feeds exhibition and conference in Nairobi, organized by Association of Kenya Feed Manufacturers, also showcased unique technologies to enable farmers improve on the quality of feed they use on their livestock. Dennis Otieno tells us more on this week's Smart Farm.
Smart Farm, brought to you by Equity. Need to purchase farm inputs like certified seeds, fertilizers or insecticides and are low on cash? Get a financial boost from Equity. Dial *247#, use Equity mobile app, your Equity line or visit any Equity branch to apply and get a loan today.
Feed cost is one of the largest expenses for most livestock farmers in the country. In addition to being a major cost, inadequate feed and low-quality feed can impair a cow's health, consequently decreasing production. The Feeds and Exhibition Conference in Nairobi, which was held last week, showcased some solutions that these farmers can use to sustain their farming. At this stand, visitors were treated to this near-infrared technology, which analyzes the quality and quantity of animal feed.
The gadget works by way of utilizing the NIR, near-infrared technology. When you shine the light, the machine works by shining the light on the feed raw material, and depending on the reflection of the light, the machine has been programmed to be able to see the characteristics of the light that has been reflected and relate it with the nutrient levels of the raw material.
The gadget can help livestock farmers cut down on cost of feeds as they make right choices before investing. According to the Kenya Bureau of Standards, KEBS, test samples show over 50% of animal feeds lack proper formulation, among other issues.
So it utilizes a technology where you scan the raw materials with an NIR machine. You get the results like immediately, and that way you're able to make a decision on whether you're using the raw material and in what way you are going to use. Because what we've noticed in the industry is a variation of the quality of the raw materials. Similar material from, say, sunflower or soya, from different sources and from different processes of processing these raw materials. Sometimes the quality vary, and if the farmers are using it without understanding the levels of nutrients, sometimes it doesn't bring uniform results. So with the technology that we're bringing, you're able to scan raw materials and get the results like promptly.
Not far from here, we see this stand showcasing a technology that analyzes levels of mycotoxins in grains. Mycotoxins, which are poisonous metabolic products formed by molds, are a serious threat as they cause contamination in crops.
This is a LISA mycotoxin testing kit. Is very simple to work with because in this mycotoxin testing kit, it has reagents for analyzing mycotoxin, and the reaction takes place in only 15 minutes, and then it also comes with a reader for reading the results of analysis. So after we have done the reaction 15 minutes, they now just subject that reaction to the reader. It will give you the outcome, the results, the concentration of mycotoxin in your product. It can be dairy product, it can be cereal, it can be maize flour, it can be animal feed.
Using the technology in time enables farmers reduce losses and protect consumers as well. The three-day exhibition, which was organized by Association of Kenya Feed Manufacturers, AKIFEMA, had 50 exhibitors showcasing the latest innovations in feed manufacturing.
So today, as realized through the exhibition stands, we have machinery suppliers who are showcasing the latest technologies in machine in terms of animal feed manufacturing. We have suppliers of feed ingredients, because we realize that one of the biggest challenges we've been having as a country, as far as animal feeds is concerned, it has been the high cost of animal feeds. That has been a persistent problem, high cost of animal feeds. And at times, farmers have been complaining about low quality feeds. So we decided to bring the best of the best so that our millers can learn.
As Kenya's animal feed sector continues to evolve, innovation and support are key to overcoming challenges and ensuring a sustainable future. Dennis Otieno, Smart Farm.
Smart Farm, brought to you by Equity. Low on cash to purchase farm inputs such as certified seeds, fertilizers, or insecticides? Get a financial boost from Equity to endeleza your farming business. Simply dial *247#, use Equity mobile app, your Equity line, or visit any Equity branch to apply and get a loan today.